it's all exploded once again at the High Court as Prince Harry's action against the Daily Mail becomes ever more explosive, and the delusional Duke makes it clear that he doesn't just want to bring down the Daily Mail, he wants to bring down the most famous females on Fleet Street who he believes have been ruining his life for the past 3 decades. Those women in question: Victoria Newton, editor of the Sun newspaper, who has become a very close ally of Prince William, who she meets regularly, and was even pictured of late with King Charles. Rebecca English, who is the royal editor of the Daily Mail to this day, co-host of the Palace Confidential show that broadcasts on YouTube, and Katie Nichols, a thorn in the side of Prince Harry for years because she's revealed many true stories about him, who now presents state occasions on the British royal family for the BBC and is a regular on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Now, of course, there are two sides to both of these stories, and the Daily Mail has hit back today. We're going to be getting into it all with Lauren, the Insider, and Nate H., host of The State of Politics on YouTube. But first, let me show you Harry deciding to ignore questions about whether he just hates free speech on the way into court this morning.
It's free speech alongside press accountability.
Morning, Harry.
Harry, Prince Harry, I love you.
Harry, how important is free speech alongside press accountability?
Just throw a piece.
See you, mate.
Now, today's court case action was truncated because the Daily Mail tried a very different strategy to that of David Sherborne, Harry's slippery, greasy lawyer, who he was introduced to by Elton John, who is, of course, also one of the claimants in this case, alongside his husband, David Furnish, the actress Sadie Frost, Elizabeth Hurley, and Baroness Doreen Lawrence. But because the evidence presented in the opening statement was so truncated, Harry's going to be on the stand tomorrow. It is D-Day for Harry tomorrow. But his lawyer did set out what they would argue was clear evidence of illegal misconduct by the Daily Mail newspaper in quite some detail. What's awkward for Harry, it also includes intimate details of his former relationship with Chelsea Davy, the woman who he claims at one point was the real love of his life. So let's get into it. This is reporting from Imogen James inside the High Court, who revealed that Harry's argument contains 14 articles that he says were unlawfully gathered about his private life. The first in question from 2001. This is over Prince Harry being chosen as the godfather to Tiggy Legg Burke's child. The story written by Katie Nicholl, who claims she might have heard it from a party planner and stood it up with a socialite, but David Sherborne says neither of them are plausible as sources. No evidence there as far as I could tell. What's much, much more difficult is when it comes to Prince Harry's travel plans with Chelsea Davy. And the first is in reference to a 2004 incident. What we see are their travel plans together, including the fact that Prince Harry brought her out on a private hunting expedition to a lodge in Argentina. There are a number of journalists involved in this article feeding different information, the lawyer says. An email from Heather Briley to Caroline Graham at the Daily Mail. Now remember, Caroline Graham is the woman who Harry and Meghan hates because she's been holed up in hospital with Meghan Markle's father, Thomas Markle, who just lost his leg in a Filipino hospital. And the email said, have spoken to contact at British Airways here half an hour ago and offered, and then there's $2 in return for name. He's gone off to investigate. Harry is paranoid about her being outed. Another email says that is shown to the court. It's from Caroline Graham and sent to Dave Dillon. Now, David Dillon is now the editor of the Mail on Sunday newspaper. David Sherborne says, "We say these emails clearly refer to the payment of information unlawfully obtained through British Airways through payments or blagging." Then Harry's witness statement admitted that all of this has caused distress, paranoia, and other feelings it generates. He also claims that the travel stories were a security risk to him. And this one involving Rebecca English is particularly difficult. Yesterday, Sherborne accused her of obtaining the exact plane seats, flight times, and travel plans of Prince Harry's then-girlfriend Chelsea Davy in 2007. Prince Harry's witness statement says this was not only intrusive information, but it also carried security risks. Sherborne says the evidence shows English, this is Rebecca English, paid £200 for this information to private investigator Mike Burr, including Davy's seat number. English says she doesn't remember this email. It was entirely frustrating that this information came out while Prince Harry was trying to maintain a private relationship, the Duke says in his witness statement. Harry says it's deeply disturbing seeing this information in the article and that neither he nor Davy were sharing this information with others. It demonstrates irresistibly that Rebecca English used unlawful information gathering, Sherborne says. So there does seem to be evidence there. Then the final example that Sherborne used in his opening arguments today was an article published in 2010 and written by Katie Nicholl. He says it contains specific and intimate details of his private life and relationship with Chelsea Davy. One line says Harry was a regular fixture at Davy's house. The article also includes their plans as a couple and the Duke's preferences of where he likes to spend the night. Prince Harry says this is highly sensitive information in his witness statement. Sherborne says Prince Harry's evidence is absolutely firm that it couldn't have come from another person other than Davy or him, and that neither of them shared this. Now, the problem for Harry here, though, is that it's also been revealed that Harry did have a personal relationship with Katie Nicholl, that they did meet at the Kensington Roof Gardens, and that he did invite her to come and party with Harry and her friends. However, Sherborne said this story could not have conceivably come from legitimate sources. Nicholl's evidence is from her notebooks, which show she obtained these details from Garth Gibbs. He was living alone on the Isle of Wight in semi-retirement in his last year alive during this time. Sherborne says it is utterly implausible that he could have provided this information to Nicholl. Instead, they allege she used unlawful information gathering techniques. He says her credibility becomes critical here. Another story in December 2007 covered Harry's plan to take Chelsea Davy on a make-or-break holiday. Sherborne says there was striking evidence that this also came from the private investigator called Mike Burr. In an email to a Mail staffer, Burr Wright had to do several searches. Chelsea Davy was on standby and then at the last minute paid cash for a ticket at the airport. Maybe this was their way to try to avoid detection, the email said. The investigators working for the Mail went to such lengths that despite everything the Duke of Sussex and Chelsea Davy did to maintain their privacy, it was entirely frustrated. He said the inference the information was unlawfully obtained was obvious. So, to Nate H. and Lauren, the insider now. Lauren, we need to see evidence. And of course, I am going to present in just one moment exactly how the Daily Mail fought back against this. But my reading of what we have seen so far in court is that the real issues are for Caroline Graham and for Rebecca English, who still maintain these senior positions at the Mail, because there is actually email evidence that doesn't appear to back up what they are saying. Now, Katie Nicholl, I think, is a totally different case. I do know Katie Nicholl personally, by the way, but this isn't why I'm saying it. I think it's a totally different case because there's no email evidence to prove that she did anything unlawful. And she did have incredibly close relationships with Prince Harry, including the fact that he invited her to secretly party with him and his mates.
So I think there's two things here. If we look at historic industry practices, phone hacking and obtaining private information was widespread. Rupert Murdoch has paid £1.2 billion in settlements and legal fees. So to me, having worked in the industry, you know, and I'll tread carefully because this is an ongoing legal case, I find it... I would struggle to think it was only going on at Rupert Murdoch's papers, for example. And then we have to think, well, if we're looking at things happening that potentially shouldn't have been happening, that poses the question, technically, we're looking at organized crime. So people may not leave a paper trail. Obviously, this is an ongoing trial, and the Daily Mail do deny all of these allegations. The second point is that this, for me, I get so cross about Prince Harry because people have had their lives destroyed by phone hacking. I know people, and it truly has ripped their lives apart. But what we see with Prince Harry yet again is half in, half out. We see the greed. You know, he could have had a really strong case and he could have not engaged with the mainstream media, you know, the people that he's blaming for all of this. And if the Daily Mail are at fault, then absolutely, that is horrific. But Prince Harry and Meghan Markle leak stories to the same media outlets they are suing, if you look at the track record. So which one is it, Harry? Have they destroyed your life? Have they made you paranoid or not? Because I don't know anyone of sane mind that would continue to leak stories or have their representatives leak stories that they're then suing in court. And I think it's very, very unfortunate for Prince Harry that he has partied with Katie Nicholl, because this blurs the lines hugely. And I don't think it, you know, looking at everything today, I don't believe it's shaping up very well for Prince Harry.
Interesting. I mean, Nate H., what I find fascinating is that Harry admits that he does have a huge amount of paranoia. There might be good reason for that in some way, but he hasn't helped himself. You know, his extensive, detailed illegal drug use has not helped that situation, for example. And I think what it means is that, Nate, he sees criminality everywhere. He thinks everything is a stitch-up. He thinks everyone is out to get him. That simply isn't the case. I don't believe all of these stories came from illegally obtained means. I mean, I've spoken in the past, and I've been very transparent about it this week, about how he accused me of unlawful reporting and my revelation of Megxit, the decision for him to exit the United Kingdom with Meghan, when actually my story had been completely legally obtained, in part by speaking to his own staff members. So he actually had to withdraw the legal action against me. In saying that, Nate, and I know you've been across big celebrity court cases in the past, there does look to be some, I would argue, difficult evidence here for the Mail.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, there is. This whole thing just makes me think back to the South Park riff on Harry and Meghan, where they're like, "Leave us alone, we don't want attention," and then they just keep yammering on to everyone. I don't know. I just think it's one of those things. I understand why people sort of care, but I also don't understand why people care that much about this entire scenario. If people didn't give them any sort of airtime, I don't think. I mean, no one would be doing anything illegal, right? At the end of the day, I mean, yeah, they left the UK, but then also they're creating Netflix shows and doing all this absolute other drivel, and it's a clown show. The whole thing's a clown show, and they're not. To me, I've never understood why people care that much for these, at least these royals, anyway. They're not remotely regal in any way, shape, or form. And everything that they sort of how they handle themselves and just all of their business dealings. It's just, to me, it's just a clown show. But yeah, I mean, look, if people are doing things illegal, yeah, it's not great, obviously. Of course, not great. But they have a long history of just leaking stuff because, again, they want the attention, whilst also crying that they're getting attention. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't with these clowns.
Totally. And look, unfortunately, rightly or wrongly, they are now part of the political discourse too. They do tend to be backed by the hard left in this country. And it was interesting for me to see James O'Brien jump on their bandwagon today. Sorry, I know this will be painful. But it's to just make a point of how they are trying to position the discourse in regards to this court case. Watch.
Entire lives over the course of the last decade or so can be viewed as an exercise in intimidation by the UK media. Think of all the people you know who've got strong opinions about Prince Harry, a military hero. or indeed about his wife, a successful actress. Think of all the people you know in your life who've got strong opinions about them. Oh, no, I don't like them. Oh, I don't trust her. Where do you think those opinions came from? You can malign and demonise innocent people so completely and comprehensively that you've probably got family members who think that they have a bead upon these two characters, while Paul Dacre's personal history will be completely new to them. They'll know nothing about the man responsible for newspaper headlines that wouldn't have been out of place in 1930s Germany. And yet Harry and his wife have been turned into, or the massive attempt to turn them into, pariahs, public enemies. That's how it works. It's also, of course, how the mafia works.
Okay. We're the mafia. We're the mafia. But look, the Mail did fight back in a truncated opening argument, which is going to see Harry take the stand tomorrow. Now, I do wonder if they did this to almost put him off, because he thought he was going to get a day's grace tomorrow and start his evidence on Thursday. It's now going to happen tomorrow. But first we get to David Sherborne directly questioning the Mail and saying none of the smoke and mirrors or the carefully orchestrated propaganda and attacks on witnesses can save Associated at this time. They have to live by their all or nothing defence. He says the damages must be significant, but it is not the claim for damages which brings these claimants here. It's uncovering the truth. So in other words, they're not doing any of this for money. Now, the Mail and their KC, Anthony White, then took the stand after lunch, or just before lunch, sorry, and said that actually all of the Mail's stories came from a compelling pattern of legitimate sourcing, which means it was just journalists doing their job, like Katie Nicholl, going out to meet people. White says the allegations are made against the company, but in reality are made against the individual journalists. He called the allegations very serious. All of the journalists would have to be lying to the court about the articles. This has an inherent probability, White argues. His next point, and this is from Imogen James, by the way, in court, is that most of the articles were written 15 to 20 years ago. It's a striking feature of the Mail's defence that it has been able to obtain evidence from almost all of the journalists that wrote the articles in question. Though it's inevitable, given the length of time, that some circumstances have changed, like some have died, some have retired, others have moved to new companies. But he says it makes it more striking that they have produced so much evidence. He also said the case is clutching at straws, making the point that the claimants are relying on evidence of a payment to a private investigator before or after a Mail article was published. But he argues David Sherborne's case often does not give details about what these investigators were doing for this money. So, for example, could some of their behaviour have been totally legal? Lauren, what did you make of the Mail's defence, which is basically all of this was legitimate reporting? Oh, and by the way, our journalists are going to take the stand.
So this is hard because I don't want to do anything that could impact the ongoing trial. But if we look at the industry standards and practice, or lack of standards back in the day, everything I'm hearing, I was hearing it from numerous papers. It's not just one paper. This was across the board. This was common practice. It was an open secret. So whilst I don't know whether it was happening at the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday, it was very common for journalists to not write down what a payment was for and to avoid a paper trail. Obviously, this is in the hands of the court now, so we will see what the outcome is. But each side, it is, the Daily Mail's job to make David Sherborne seem that he's incapable and that the facts are not there. And likewise, it's Harry's side's job to nail the Mail for everything. So I think we just have to keep looking at the facts. But I would have concerns if I were the Mail. I don't think Prince Harry has got them nailed down as he thinks he does. But this is a case that has come £38 million so far. Someone is going to be left with a huge bill, and we've got weeks and weeks left of this. Now, one thing I did want to add, Dan, is the sickening propaganda drivel that LBC was saying. It's important that you remember that the chairman of Invictus Games, or the foundation, is a man called Charles Allen. He's also the chairman of Global Radio. So this explains why 52.7 million people, I believe it is a week, that's their listenership. That's why they are being given this absolute drivel. When you go, am I going mad? Meghan Markle was never a great actress. Prince Harry, yes, he's been in the military, but wouldn't really describe him as a war hero as such. I think there are many veterans that we should be speaking of above Harry. So here we have another great example of why it's all one big club. And thank goodness we're all critical thinkers and we're not in it.
And what has been very interesting to see, Nate, is that the royal family have decided this week to keep calm and carry on, but keep calm and carry on outside of London, basically as far away as possible from the action in the court case. William and Catherine making a very popular appearance in Scotland today. Is that a sensible strategy, Nate, do you think, from a PR perspective, to just say, this is what we do, going to keep smiling, going to keep showing that actually you can do royal activities without the drama? Like, is that the best thing for them to do to counteract Harry in court?
Well, I mean, I guess so, to a degree. I mean, they've managed to keep quiet about what is it, Andrew and his Epstein affairs and all of the nonsense and drama that's been happening over there. So it's one of those things, isn't it? Just play complete ignorance to everything. Like, shove your fingers in your ears and go la la la, not listening. I mean, sure, I guess maybe a tactic, especially when you've got LBC. I mean, James O'Brien. God,
what did you make of that?
How did you go from Harry and Meghan to talking about 1930s Germany on headlines? That man
and the mafia. And the mafia.
Delusional.
He's nuts.
Living in La La Land.
He is.
Honestly.
He is. No, he really is. And that is why we need shows like yours, Nate. I'm absolutely loving The State of Politics, which you host alongside Bodade, who is also a presenter on The Lotus Eaters and was here last week. I'm really loving it. So congratulations on your launch. I really recommend everyone check out The State of Politics, because it's certainly the type of coverage you do not get from the mainstream media. And of course, Lauren Lunn-Farrow, host of Lauren the Insider. Thank you so much for being here too. Thank you too for Father Calvin Robinson, who was here earlier in the show. Should say, by the way, a special live edition of Outspoken tomorrow. Harry in the dock. Wednesday, 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern in the US, 11 a.m. Pacific. We will be live. And on our main show tomorrow at 5 p.m. UK time, Ant Middleton is here for his first interview since Reform UK chose Layla Cunningham, the Muslim woman, to be their candidate for the Mayor of London. Lots of feedback from you today. I like this from Mo Bob, who says, I'm beginning to think Keir Starmer needs a mental health assessment. Corin Bell says, well said, Trump. Giving away the Chagos Islands when it is going to cost the British taxpayers millions is utter madness. And Malk5567 says, the P.T. Ramseys are now the Timu Beckhams. I like that. I like that very much. Okay, a reminder of your Greatest Britain and Union Jackass nominees. Craig Guilford of the West Midlands Police, nominated by Drew59 Blue over the fact that he was allowed to retire. Prince Harry, nominated by Julie Ann Lowe for his never-ending war on the press. And Lisa Nandy, nominated by It's Only Me 44 for claiming that reform would lead a fascist government. And the votes are in. 23% of you going for Craig Guilford, the runner-up, with 35% of the vote, Lisa Nandy. But today's Union Jackass with 42% of your vote appropriate, given what we've just been talking about, Prince Harry. And today's Greatest Britain, nominated by Scott Fly 23, is Dolly Parton for celebrating turning 80 years old. Honestly, I love Dolly Parton. I absolutely love her. I think she's a living legend, actually, and we don't have many of them. Great woman. Happy 80th, Dolly. Hope you're doing okay.
David Beckham is facing painful personal turmoil as his long-running family conflict with his eldest son, Brooklyn Beckham, continues to escalate, with some observers warning that history may be repeating itself within one of the world's most famous families. The public dispute began after Brooklyn posted a detailed social media statement in which he accused his parents of numerous grievances, saying that they had prioritized public image and brand management over genuine family connection, and insisting that his relationship with his wife, actress Nicola Peltz, had suffered as a result. Now, those close to the Beckhams are drawing a stark comparison between the current feud and a painful chapter from David Beckham's own past. When David was a young man, he experienced a deep estrangement with his father, Ted Beckham, after a high-profile career move that upset his family and led to years of silence between father and son. It was only a serious health crisis that ultimately brought them back together. Friends of the Beckham family say that the parallel is haunting for David, who reportedly fears that he may one day regret a rift that has alienated his son and left his family fractured. Those close to him have told entertainment media that he hopes reconciliation can come without the kind of dramatic life event that eventually healed his relationship with his own father. The core of the conflict centers on Brooklyn's allegation that his parents tried to undermine his marriage long before it took place, including intervening in decisions about his wife's wedding dress and attempting to coerce him into signing over control of his name and public persona. Brooklyn also spoke of feeling humiliated at his wedding celebration and of being excluded from private family moments, both before and after the ceremony. The Beckham household has been quiet in the face of these explosive claims, with few direct statements from David or Victoria. David has made a single public comment on national television acknowledging that children can make mistakes and emphasizing the need to allow young adults to learn and grow, if not addressing the specifics of his son's accusations. Meanwhile, coverage of family events and social media activity has highlighted the sense of separation. In a recent retrospective post about family life, David shared memories that included all of his children except Brooklyn, a detail noted by commentators as significant amid the ongoing tensions. Public reaction to the feud has been mixed. Some commentators frame Brooklyn's statements as a necessary declaration of independence, while others view them as overly dramatic and lacking full context. Entertainment analysts stress that the Beckham family's brand has long been intertwined with their personal lives, making any private strain ripe for intense media scrutiny. At its heart, the story reflects a universal theme of generational conflict, amplified by celebrity status and global attention. Whether this deeply personal rift can be healed remains uncertain. But the echoes of the past weigh heavily on David Beckham and those closest to him, underscoring how old wounds can reverberate across decades and even through public life.